Scanning for audio.
Welcome to, well, a new year for us, but obviously we're still in December when we record this, but that's not important. What is important is that welcome to, for your consideration, the post-Christmas, because you may have actually missed the Christmas special, which is when we discussed Muppets Christmas Carol. More about that in a second. But now we're back on track and we're discussing The Breakfast Club, which was chosen by my other half. So, hello, Luke. Happy New Year.
Hello, Michael. Yeah, it's very weird to be wishing you a Happy New Year when we haven't actually had Christmas yet.
That's true.
But listeners, yes, a Happy New Year to you. I hope that your Christmas break was a restful one. And I hope my Christmas break was a restful one too. What about you, Michael? Have you got any Christmas plans?
Absolutely. Yes, we have. Yes, it's a bit complicated, but basically Christmas Eve, we have Christmas lunch. Christmas Day, we spend basically just playing games and eating leftovers. That way we can just have actual Christmas together. And Christmas Eve isn't just spent sat around going, is it Christmas yet? As so many people often do. So that's our Christmas plan. So hopefully that's already happened.
Yes, hopefully
but it hasn't happened yet.
No.
So anyway. Hello.
Hello, yes. Well, as you said, before we get into Breakfast Club, I happened to stumble upon a missing Doctor Who link to the Muppet Christmas Carol through my watching of New Captain Scarlet.
Okay.
Because I've just finished watching New Captain Scarlet.
Okay, well that's a whole extra conversation.
In a minute. It's a whole extra conversation. But the link is that I had noticed Nigel Plaskett as the voice of Captain Black, and I knew the name, and I thought I'd placed where I knew the name from, and then I was looking him up and I was like, oh no, that's not who I was thinking you are. Nigel Plaskett plays Unstoff in the Reboss operation with Tom Baker.
Right.
So so that's the connection between New Captain Scarlet and Doctor Who.
Okay.
And one of my favourite Tom Baker stories is the Rebus operation, but that's a whole other conversation, which I had on the Moment podcast many years ago. If you want to track that down, anyway. So I was looking him up, and I saw that he was a puppeteer for a lot of his career. Like he's mostly known for his voice work and puppetry, hence obviously being the voice of Captain Black on and Dr. Gold. Actually,
he's not Binro, is he?
No, he's not Binro. He's Unstoff. He's the guy that tells Binro that he was right.
Oh, cool. Yes.
Yeah.
Binro. I so need a Binro was right t-shirt.
Yeah.
I've always wanted one.
But yeah, so I looked him up and realised he was a puppeteer, and lo and behold, he was a Muppet performer on the Muppets Christmas Carol.
Oh, that's marvellous. Actually, I'm quite chuffed about that.
So having thought there wasn't a Doctor Who actor in Muppet Christmas Carol, indeed there was. We just didn't see his face or hear his voice, I don't think. I think he was just there as a puppeteer. So, it's always nice to find a Doctor Who actor on these things, isn't it?
If you look hard enough, we will find one.
But yes, so The Breakfast Club. So you, your wife picked this. So my wife having picked Austin Land for us, your wife picked The Breakfast Club. So what is her history with The Breakfast Club? And then what is your history with The Breakfast Club? Why are we watching it this month?
I'd never seen it ever, but which I'll talk about in a minute.
Right.
And my wife just wanted to introduce. She went, "How can you have done a film like making Degree and not seen this? That's ridiculous." So I went, okay, and we watched it, and I could see why she really liked it. I was like, oh yeah, so it was one of those. When you first get together and you start sharing stuff like, well, I've got some of these, kind of that. And she just said, no, you've got to watch this. And I was like, okay, so let's watch it. Because everyone's heard of The Breakfast Club. It's just one of those films.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, yeah, legitimately, let's watch it. So we watched it together, and I had some thoughts. and at the time, and yeah, I liked it. She liked it a lot. I am completely under very strict instructions not to take the piss, which I wasn't going to do anyway, so that's fine.
Right, interesting. Okay.
Because I think it's because it just means something to her.
Right.
And it's sort of one of those kind of emotional, primal things, you know. I mean, it's set in 1984, which for us, we would have been 12. But it's one of those films that in the UK made a big impact on video rather than at the cinema.
Right.
So VHS would have been big at the time, and then you've got all the other films that fit the same kind of bracket, the Pretty in Pinks and Ferris Bueller, which I'm sure we'll cover in the talking of this, which were again all big amongst the people that I was at school with. And it was one of those things for me where I just kind of didn't get round to it, and then it was gone. Because I was too busy doing, and I'll talk about that in a minute, other types of films. No, that sounds dodgy. I was deeply embedded in the exciting world of, you know, sci-fi and 50s sci-fi and all of those things. And then you can only dedicate so much of your life to watching Highlander for the 400th time before you've missed out on other movies. And that's it. I missed out all of the Brat Packs and all of those. Mm-hmm. I think Flatline was the first time I ever came across most of that crew, and they're not really this crew and things like that. Although my wife said, so when you do these chats, one of the things you chat about is where have you seen that person? She said, well, one person's got a definite sci-fi heritage, and I'm watching it again this Sunday for this, and I'm thinking, who the hell is it? Right? Because no, it's not that. Well, kind of, but no. And at the end, she went, "What do you mean you don't know who it was?" And then she told me the character where I might have seen that actor before in a sci-fi film. And I just said, "I've seen that once. I've seen the sequel more times than I've seen the first one, and I've seen the first one. It's Molly Ringwald, and she's in Short Circuit." Not Molly Ringwald, sorry. Ali Sheedy is in Short Circuit. Is in Short Circuit 1. And
right.
And I was just like, okay then. Because that's, although it's technically sci-fi, it's, yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you at this point that there's another Ali Sheedy film, which is also sci-fi, that we are going to be doing on this podcast at some point in the future, but not straight away. Not straight. It's not Short Circuit. I think it's going to be my next choice after the one that I choose at the end of this podcast.
Okay. Right. Well, I won't look into it too much because I like being surprised.
I suppose your other thing that's slightly sci-fi but is more spy is obviously Emilio Estevez appears at the beginning of Mission Impossible before getting bumped off by a rogue lift shaft.
Yeah. That's okay. See, I've never been I like Mission Impossible the TV series, but I'm not a huge fan of right, you know what? My brain's frozen and all I'm thinking is Scientology bloke. And that's probably not the best way to describe him.
I mean,
but I'm not,
it's one way of describing Tom Cruise, yes.
That's it. I couldn't remember Tom Cruise's name. My head just melted there. But I'm not the biggest fan of Tom Cruise in things. It's the reason I've not seen the new version of The Mummy, which I really wanted to see. But I'm like, I just don't enjoy films with him in. People go, what's your favourite film with him in? I'm like, it's Legend, because it's got Tim Curry in it and it kind of balances out. But no.
Ooh, so interesting. Because I do have one Tom Cruise film that's a sci-fi film that we may consider at some point.
There is a sci-fi film with him in, whether that die repeat thing. That I have
there's
seen that.
Yes, I wasn't thinking of that. I do like that. No, I was thinking of Minority Report.
Oh, which exactly. You see, I forget he's in that, and I think, I must watch Minority Report again, and then I sit down and go,
it's Tom
why
Cruise.
Did I forget?
Yeah.
Why did I forget it was
He's
Tom
the main
Cruise? It's a great,
yeah,
because I'm all up for your Agatha and your other characters,
yeah.
And but it's like I've come for the psychics, but I'll stay for the sci-fi. It's fine. So so that's it. Basically, I watched it with my wife. I did enjoy it. She suggested it, and I thought, you know what? Yes, if Luke's not seen it, great. If he has seen it, at least we'll have something to talk about. That's it. So, are you familiar with this at all?
Well, So the first thing that stood out to me when we started watching it is that it gives you a date on screen as the 20-something of March.
24th, yeah.
24th of March. So this is literally set less than 2 weeks before I was born.
Cool. I hadn't even thought about that.
So as they are in detention in the fictional world, I'm sort of preparing to enter the world. I mean, it came out in 1985, so I'm assuming that it was shot after the date on which it supposedly occurs fictionally. But so this is I'm kind of entering the world and therefore not aware of films.
It is quite weird to lock something in.
It is. It is.
I don't think I would have done it, but we need to talk about the directorial choices that are being made here as well.
Yeah.
Because, we can, so that's good.
So while for you it was something you could have seen at the time, it was definitely something that wasn't something that I saw. I mean, obviously, I have seen plenty of movies from the 80s, Indiana Jones.
You shock me, young man. You shock me.
Indiana Jones, Back to the Future. The film that I'm going to pick at the end of this one is a film from early in the 80s.
Marvelous.
So there's plenty of films from this era that I know and I enjoy. And I was aware of the title. I was aware of the title, The Breakfast Club. I was aware of the title, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. More recently, I've become aware of the title 16 Candles. All these other John Hughes films. Like he was well known, and in terms of the actors in this, I became aware of Ali Sheedy in another film, like I say, which we're going to do. I was aware of Emilio Estevez as like Martin Sheen's son, and we were watching this. Hannah and I were watching this, and she was like, "You can really tell, can't you?" And
oh my God, you can! It's the most Martin Sheen he looks in his whole career.
I understand. We were reading some trivia on it, and the guy who plays the janitor, apparently tried to encourage the cast not to go too method because of what happened to Martin Sheen on Apocalypse Now, not realising that Emilio Estevez was Martin Sheen's son.
I didn't even know that. That's hilarious.
Yes.
The horror. Yeah.
And
Judd Nelson's very method, though. So
yes, he is. We need to talk about his character.
We need to talk about all.
We need to talk about all of them.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really aware of him. I wasn't really aware of Molly Ringwald. What's the other guy? Anthony Michael Hall. It looked familiar, but then I looked through his extensive career and couldn't find anything that kind of jumped out at me. So I suppose the one of the Brat Pack who's not in this that I was most aware of was Rob Lowe because of The West Wing.
Oh, I see. I would have thought you had gone for Kiefer Sutherland, but yeah, that does make sense.
Yes. Sorry, I hadn't realised Kiefer Sutherland. Okay, Kiefer Sutherland as well.
But this is pre-Rat Pack. This is them before somebody gave them a name, before they were even behaving bratty.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
They were just jobbing actors at this point. I mean, all right, a couple of them had been in like 16 Candles, but I'm pretty sure because some of the stuff out because I watched a YouTube kind of reunion video, which is absolutely lovely, and they're all talking about it. And I've not seen 16 Candles, but I think there's a scene where someone may take their top off or something, which was put in by the studio.
Right.
And John Hughes was not impressed that this had to be inserted in order to make it a 15, in order to appeal to the right audience and things like that. And that was the point where he just went, I'm not making another film unless I've got control and I can say no to that sort of thing.
Right.
And it didn't happen again because 16 Candles made them enough money to give him enough power to be able to go, no, I don't think so.
That's interesting because I read about this film that there was going to be a scene of the teacher perving on another teacher.
Yeah.
And Molly Ringwald asked John Hughes to take it out, and he did. So, you know. I mean, that's the other thing I was saying to Hannah, I was like, I bet there's a much longer version of this film, and she found out that apparently the original cut was 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and he's got like 8 hours worth of footage that he made the film
from. Must be loads of... Yeah, exactly. So, okay. Why do you like the film, Michael? We're sort of quite a while
I enjoyed it because I was sharing it with my wife the first time. Yeah, that's true. We have, but normally we've brought something to the table.
Yeah.
Like I've gone, hey, I love Blake Seven because this, this. But these are the partner's choice things.
Yes, exactly.
So I did enjoy it. I enjoyed watching it with her. I've got some issues with it.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure I've got exactly the same issue with it that my wife's got.
Right. Okay.
But apparently it's a thing that occurs in John Hughes films, because he also did Planes, Trains and Automobiles, which I didn't know, and there was also he was a big hand in Home Alone, and a lot of films that came later. There was sort of a lot of writing going on as well.
Right.
But there's moments, especially I'm using Planes, Trains and Automobiles as an example of this. There's a moment in that where they're driving along the road, and it's quite realistic for a screwball comedy. But there's John Candy's in the car, and there's basically a moment where he turns into the devil. Literally, he's all sort of red and screaming because they're going to die in this car, and then they're not. It's one of those moments of like near-death experience things. And in this film, you've got the bit where he goes into a room, does the screamy thing like Hazel O'Connor, and the window smashes, and you're like, well, it's reinforced glass. How does that? What's going on? That's just made up nonsense. And apparently, there's moments like that in a lot of his films where it just takes you out of it in order to make a cinematic point. Something happens that's just nonsense. My wife said it's okay. This is going to be a slight left field thing. Breakdance the movie. Okay, there's a scene where the guy dances with a broom and it hovers.
Interesting. Right? Okay, right.
Okay, and it totally takes you out of the film because it goes against the apparent reality, the agreed upon reality between the audience and the film of what is real in this film, and it steps beyond that.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But it's not, But then is it a musical or whatever? Because it's not. Mm-hmm. But you know what I mean. So that's one bit that kind of distracts her. But we bonded over that. So yeah, I liked it, but I've got issues with the whole. There are 5 types of kid. It's like character classes in Dungeons and Dragons. It's like there are 5 types of children, 5 types of teenager, and this is what we are. Yeah. But in fact, the point of the movie is all kids are all types of. They're all of the types.
Right.
You see what you expect to see.
Yes.
And you don't look beyond that.
Yes.
And that's a big message for a teenager going, yeah, I'm more than you can see. Yeah. And that's going to appeal to anyone who thinks yeah. So I get why they were popular. But like I said, I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was watching those. I was working my way through all the Twilight Zones. I was watching so much 50s sci-fi, more than I could get my hands on. I was watching Reanimator. I was watching these frankly hilarious horror movies.
Right.
And I was doing those while everybody else was doing these.
Yeah.
Everyone else was doing the John Hughes route. Now, years later, I saw also came to Ferris Bueller very late. Mm-hmm. The nearest I came to this was one of my personal favourite 80s movies, which is War Games. I love War Games, but everyone else was like, oh, Ferris Bueller's so much better. And I was like, yeah. And then I finally got to see Ferris Bueller, and oh my God, I hate Ferris. I just was like, you're just a sociopath. You are so selfish. You are so focused on yourself. And I would love for there to have been a sequel, or Ferris Bueller's Life, where the guy had to face up to being, to not just coasting, to not just finding a way around stuff. And I know that was the hilarity of it all. But this is also the man who made Weird Science, which, yeah. So it's not 100%. Isn't it great? But I can see why other people think these are brilliant.
Right. Yeah.
So I think this is probably the best of that lot.
So I watched it with Hannah because I was just like, do you know are you interested? And she'd watched it before.
Okay.
And we got to the end of it, and we actually had a really good chat, because I came away from it somewhat. How do I describe my reaction? Well, it's got no plot.
That is true.
So
it's
that was my main reaction, was that it was a whole bunch of nothing. Which, if you like character-driven films more than plot-driven films, then I can see why this works because it's a character study, isn't it? And Hannah's comment was, well, I think I said, I was like, maybe if you know what you're getting into, like you said last time with Austenland, you had expectations about what it was, and then it wasn't that, and so you kind of need to watch it again. You kind of need to watch it again in the knowledge of what it is to kind of fully appreciate it. And I think with this, it would be a case of, okay, well, now I know what it is, I can watch it again in that light. The question is whether I want to invest the time in watching it again.
It's got some very quotable lines. I think that was another thing that helped its longevity.
Yeah, and I can't immediately tell you any of those quotable lines.
No, but they will come back to you. They will.
Yes, I'm sure they will. But I think trying to reflect, we then had a good chat about why she liked it more, having watched it 2 or 3 times in the past. And we kind of reflected on kind of the characters, and as I said, we ended up kind of looking on IMDb, reading kind of trivia about it, and kind of, like you said, discovering how method Judd Nelson was, bullying Molly Ringwald, when the cameras weren't rolling, and being told to stop doing that. And it. Well, I guess I'm going to tell you now because you've just mentioned it. So the other Ali Sheedy film that I know is War Games. I really love War Games, and so even though you've just said you love it too, maybe we should do, even though it's not I can bring it to you as something that you don't know. Maybe we should do it anyway at some point, because we could both talk about why we love it.
We could definitely discuss it at some point, yeah. Possibly next Christmas, because let's face it, it's something we could probably do without any research. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I have it on Blu-ray now as well. So she's very different. This is the point. She's very different in this, because that was the one thing that intrigued me going in, because I knew her. And I was like, how different from her character in War Games, whose name has completely gone out of my head at this point. But how different, and she's completely different, It's on that level, it's a great performance that she's kind of disappeared into this character that is completely unrecognisable from how I knew her before. So I appreciated that, and also just the fact that for most of the film you have no idea what's going on with her character at all. The others are a bit more obvious than she is, but I guess where I again, watching this with Hannah made it a better experience, because at least it was a case of, well, we're sitting on the sofa on a Sunday night watching a movie together. So I think that made it better. But I guess I just come down to the fact that I prefer a film with a bit more plot, because I was just sat there going,
no, that's it.
When's the story going to start?
My wife's got a theatrical background, so it does come across more of it as like it is a stage play. It's got one set. Oh my God, if you went to the school with that library, would you ever leave the library? No, you wouldn't. Right? It's got art in the middle of it, right? Okay, so but it is just one set, which makes it an ideal movie. Yeah. It's great. So yeah, I can see that. But yeah, you're right. Part of the charm is the actual fact that we're grown-ups and you get to sit down and share something, and it's nice. So
yeah. I mean, I guess going back to the fact that I don't really like Once Upon a Time, when we did The Prisoner, that's 2 people in one location talking, and I don't really like it. So I think I'm just playing to type at this point.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, well, fair enough. We'll all do that. But they are, like Once Upon a Time, you can compare it to that if you want. They've apparently got something to say, but you're not 100% certain what they're saying. So it's quite similar in that respect. Yeah, they're saying, we're all, okay. The bit at the end where they're all sat round and they're like, will we talk to each other on Monday? And you're like, well, sorry, but Molly Ringwald's right. They won't. And I know they're all like, yeah, that's terrible that we won't talk to each other. But they wouldn't. But I suppose they might. And they leave changed people.
Yeah. Yes.
So hopefully that's a good thing. There is growth. There is character growth literally in them. So that's fine. But only one person actually does the essay. So
yes. And it's not 1,000 words.
It's really not 1,000 words.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, yeah. It's interesting to kind of contemplate and go, okay, yeah, we all went to secondary school, high school.
Yeah.
We all knew people, or either we were friends with, or we were definitely not in their clique. We know all of these people, in some way, shape, or form. But that doesn't mean you necessarily want to spend an hour and a half in their company, listening to them kind of work out their teenage angst.
Well, that's true. Okay, there's a few things in my head at this point. One of them is I never watched the TV series Grange Hill when I was growing up because I'd been to school and I didn't want to spend more time there. Right? So I think that's possibly a reason that this never appealed to me to go and see. I'd rather watch something with a bit more action, a bit more fantasy, something like that, because I don't want to spend money or time with some more teenagers when I'm spending most of my time avoiding spending time with teenagers.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's much more closer than I was busy doing something else. It just didn't appeal to me in any way at the time to go, oh, I know, I'll watch some people in detention. Hang on, isn't that just being in detention? Something that I've actively avoided. And also they're Americans. You can't get away from that. We are the UK experience of being teenagers. I was not the same age, but I was within sort of 5 years of what they were supposed to be. And we don't have Letterman jocks. We don't have people who go on to, they get a scholarship because they're good at a sport, because the school needs that. Yes, we've got kids who are brainier than others, but they're just in set one and they're with other kids who are brainy. And the princesses, we've got that. And yeah, and there's the basket case. But let's face it, how many kids were going to be the slight outsiders? There was enough outsiders of a variety of different types at my high school for there to be subsets of outsider.
Yeah.
And if it had been a set a couple of years later, then the basket case would have just been a goth. But the goths hadn't quite established themselves in the States at that point. Because even, they say that the look's based more on like the beatnik kind of outsider. But that's what she would have been.
Yeah.
And at the end, right, here's the thing, right. Okay, so given what I've just said and some of the stuff I've read online, do you think, and we'll call her the goth, why the basket case, Alison,
yeah.
What does she sell out by wearing the makeup and then suddenly being attractive to, Estevez?
Yes, this is the kind of, can we remember the actual character names?
I've got them written down. Hang on, give me a second.
There's Brian is the brainy one, and then
I've actually written the word El Sporto.
And then you've got Bender. And then what is Emilio Estevez's character called? I forgot.
That's the only one I've not got written down.
Okay, and then Molly Ringwald.
Because I've got Criminal, Judd Nelson, Brain, Anthony Michael Hall, Brian Johnson, Princess, Molly Ringwald, Claire Standish,
there we go.
And Basket Case, Ali Sheedy, Alison Reynolds. But I didn't bother writing down Emilio Estevez's name. But yeah.
I mean, I was disappointed by that because, as you say, she kind of she does the conventional makeup thing, and then they get. I mean, I suppose that's the other thing is that I don't think that Bender earned the kiss with Claire. That felt wrong. And again, sorry, the upskirt shot. That fits very much in with the stuff that my daughter was on about. It was like stuff that just wouldn't be in a film these days. Well, so right, okay, now. So we have to talk about Bender then, okay?
Yes.
Because yes. So this is the point that Hannah made. She was like, because I said, "What do you think?" Because I was like, "Well, as a woman, I think you probably have a more visceral reaction to that than I do as a guy." And I went, "Oof," and she was like, "Actually, it's okay because the film doesn't treat it as okay, right?" It's totally in character for Bender to do it, because he's hiding under the desk. And they're all covering for the fact that he's hiding under the desk, and he's very impulsive as a character. So it's totally in character for him to do it. And then the film treats what he's done as being bad. At no point is it okay by any of the other characters what he's done. So I think from that point of view, it's okay. Like bad people do dickish things, and as long as the film kind of treats that. Go on.
I've got that. However, did we need the shot? Did we need the point of view shot?
Did we need the point of view shot? Well, I guess that's debatable. Yes, I guess that's debatable.
I'm thinking, no, we don't. It's one of those implication things. I think it would have been better if it was just implied.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, maybe so.
But I don't. Am I a prude? I possibly. But would I have? Was it necessary? That's what it always comes down to for me. Even if there were stunt legs or somebody else, whatever. I mean, God, even if it was like these days CGI'd or something, if it wasn't even remotely real, it's like. But is it needed for the plot? That's for me. That was important.
Yeah,
so I don't.
I don't know, and it didn't. To me, it didn't feel at all salacious or.
No, but it. Yeah. Well,
it felt.
It's in the eye of the beholder, though, isn't it?
Yeah. But let's talk about Bender. I'm going to try not to bring up what I think. I mean, actually, I'm going to try not to bring up what.
Feel
Hannah
free.
thinks.
Go for it. I don't.
No. Because I want to see if you bring it up first. So.
Oh no! It's a test.
Right, go on. No. It's because it's important that it's. If this is your perspective, I don't want to plant the idea in your head. So
fair enough.
Tell me what you make of Bender. Just by observing him. Okay. Like,
I know he's tremendously damaged, and he's doing it on purpose. But okay, well, let's cycle back to the very beginning of the film. This is, and this will make sense. It all connects. Bear with. I'm going to go with auteur theory because he's a writer-director. Now, the opening sequence of the film teaches you everything you need to know about the characters before most of them have even spoken. Yes. And the person who arrives on their own is Bender. Everybody else is delivered.
Yep.
But he goes there under his own steam because he's got nowhere better to be. And also he'll be warm and he'll be out the house.
Yeah.
So being here is a better option than being at home, which is one of the reasons why he, if he pushes and pushes and pushes in order to get there longer, he gets given 2 months, but he knows he's got somewhere to go on a Saturday now.
Yep.
So, although there's a bit of rebellion there, there's actually a bit of planning. He is the cleverest person in the room in a social sense because he's the person who knows how to work the door. It occurs to him to do that and then he follows through and does that. So, and like you've just pointed out, the kids protect him because they might hate him at that moment, but they'll still protect him over the teacher who they just by instinct, by default, dislike just because of his position in the hierarchy. I'm not a huge fan, and I would have if I'd been there, I would have actively avoided any form of contact with him if that had been a real-time situation.
Yes, I agree.
But he does question things a lot more than the other people. And he's come to some conclusions. Some of them are right, some of them are wrong. But he's come to conclusions and he's obviously thought about stuff. He hasn't just accepted his position.
Yeah.
And he is good with his hands. Like he said, he does shop. And he could have made the elephant light up.
Right, let's come at this from another angle. And this is perhaps dropping more of a hint. If you were going to diagnose Bender with anything, what would you diagnose him with?
Oh, got you. Right. I can see where this is going. Yeah, he's possibly got ADHD. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Possibly. What? Because he's literally all over the place when he's having conversations. He'll stay on one topic. He'll just do physical stuff just to give himself some form of sensation, which probably didn't even occur for the performance because it was just there. So the actor probably just mined their own life in order to produce that. But then again, so does the basket case. She does the same. with the incredible drawing that she makes snow. I've done that. I did that as a kid.
Yeah, so I guess that's the thing is to how obviously we've said that Judd Nelson was very method, and I'm not familiar with his other performances. So the question is, how much of that is him? How much of that is the character has written? How much of it is the research that he's done? I mean, Hannah just commented the fact that he comes in and he touches everything and then he shoves something off the side, which
he's
is exactly,
chaos personified. Yeah.
We know lots of neurodivergent people because you find
we do.
Your tribe, right? Like a lot of the people that I know are couples where one of them's autistic and one of them's ADHD, because that seems to be a good...
Since you pointed that out, me and Andy have both been looking and we've found nothing else.
Exactly.
But
it therefore means we know a lot of children who have those characteristics. One in particular who's a really good friend of my daughter's, who must be about 8 or... Well, he was born just after we got married, so he's 9. He's 9 now, but he's exactly
Is he 9 going on 200?
Well, he's 9 going on about 4 when it comes to his impulse control.
Fair enough.
And he's exactly like Bender in that he'll walk into a room and he just won't be able to stop himself from like touching everything. He's so impulsive, and obviously it
and possibly clumsy as well. That's why he's knocking over stuff like the paint pot that ended up with him getting the cigar burn.
Yes, exactly. So, but again, it's one of those things. You're like, this is 1984. A public awareness.
It's that thing on the internet. Here's the thing. I mean, you see this on the internet all the time, especially in places like Twitter rather than like Blue Sky. You get someone going, well, when I was growing up, there were no autistic people. There were no people with ADHD. Where have they all come from? And you're like, mate, always there, but they had different names. You had the word naughty or chaotic or just a bad kid or anything like or in some cases mental, or all of those incredibly hurtful words that are just the same. They're just a different set of labels.
Yes, exactly.
Mate, we have always been here. You just called us something else.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I guess that's my point. Is that I'm not saying, obviously, John Hughes didn't set out to write an ADHD character.
No, exactly.
But he would have known people like that and gone, I'm going to write somebody like that.
Even the Big Bang Theory is 15 years old now at this point? Even 15 years ago, at no point would you have gone, Sheldon's character, he's on the on the autistic spectrum would be the polite way of saying it.
Well, I think
some people would have just dived straight in and gone Asperger's at the time, but now you just go, yeah, that's the character's this.
Yeah, but I think that's part of the problem with the Big Bang Theory is that it doesn't.
I see your point.
It doesn't because he's clearly written as being autistic, and they never give him that label. And my wife was watching another show recently where, literally something that was made in the last year or two, with this kid. And again, the program resists putting that label there. And I know that people are kind of well-meaning in terms of trying not to label children, and we know people who are resistant to having their child assessed and diagnosed, which I think is terrible because actually, like, knowing that your brain is literally developed differently from all the people around you, and that's why you don't fit into the world, is invaluable.
I spent my childhood. There's a cultural thing as well going on, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I spent my childhood feeling weird. And I now know it's because I'm almost certainly autistic, right? I mean, I don't have a formal diagnosis. I don't really see any...
Well, exactly, you can't get one. But also,
no, I could get
does anyone need one anymore?
Well...
No, it would be expensive. And the thing is, a lot of people think you're after a diagnosis in order to get medication.
Yeah.
Right? And do you want to be different? Do you want to be somebody else?
No, it's not.
Or do you just want to be comfortable in your own skin?
Yeah, exactly.
It's and go...
But my wife's had these conversations with her parents of like, well, why do you want to have ADHD? And Hannah's like, well, it's not that I want to have ADHD. I just want to know if I do have it, because this.
But then there's the fear. There's the absolute fear that although you've filled in all the questionnaires and you've scored 95 out of 100 on you're probably this.
Yeah.
Until somebody turns around and says, no, you actually are. You've got that fear that actually, what happens if I'm not, and I am just weird?
Well, I think at this point, I'm just like, I don't care what anybody else thinks. Because actually
and that's a hell of a step to take in life.
But no, in terms of like, if I said, I mean, it's entirely possible that somebody listening to this podcast will go, Luke's not got a diagnosis, therefore he's not autistic, and might comment on this podcast, right? I mean, we don't get many comments on this podcast, so it's very unlikely. And
we really don't.
And I'm just saying directly to that person, if that's what you're thinking, don't bother. So my point is that I've got to a point now in life where I've seen enough videos in my feed. You know, Hannah sends me ones about ADHD and autism, and goes, you know, when it's something that's outside of her experience, she goes, "Is this your experience?" And I go, "Blimey, yes." You know, and it's just it's quite freeing, and I don't know whether you've had that experience as well of kind of.
No, it is, because I hear because there's other there's memes and stuff like that, but there's also other theories where people just go, it physically hurts inside when X is taking place, and I'm like, yeah, what do you mean it doesn't feel like that for other people?
Yeah,
what?
Yeah.
And that becomes as a surprise, and it's like, what you mean? You don't stand in a room that you need to tidy and then just want to stab yourself rather than do the room, because that would be less intense sensation.
Yeah.
Or you just instantly feel at all times that you're in the wrong, despite the fact that sometimes you're not. And it's like, doesn't everyone feel like that at all times? So perhaps that's what this is. This is what the Breakfast Club is. It's saying other people feel like this.
Yes, exactly.
But it's the 80s version of that.
Yes.
And that's what it is. So maybe that's what this film is. This film has just brought out that conversation that when I was a kid, people with autism were people on the extreme top end of the autistic Asperger's spectrum, right? They were the ones who ended up in special schools.
Yes.
And for people of literally my age and my generation, not necessarily even yours, which is like 10 years behind me, they were, if you said autism, ADHD didn't even have like a phrase at that point.
Yeah.
It was just someone who couldn't concentrate.
Yeah.
And they, God, my head, seriously focus. Right. They were the ones who were called autistic, those kids, the ones who ended up in a special school, the ones who had like a Canadian accent, because that was, at the time, that was seen as a thing. Like, really? Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, my mum used to teach them. Used to work in a special school, so I had more exposure to people with autism than the majority of people I knew for decades. I knew a lot more because I just picked up on stuff, and there was we'll talk about the whole spurious. No, actually, that's a whole different conversation for that time. Sorry. Really, I'm having a lot of trouble staying on topic tonight, more than usual, which isn't good. Okay, so that's what a lot of people of my age think of as autistic. That top end can only function in a certain way, and perhaps Rain Man's got a lot to do with it as well. It's like, there's a big difference between somebody who is like, incredibly good at maths but has nothing else. You understand.
Yeah. I mean, and
when they say it's because there's someone who just really likes being in their shed and doesn't like being around people.
Yeah.
Is it? And you're like, well, they're not the same thing.
No.
But then again, you've got stuff like, hey, that person's got cancer. What? There's like 700 types of cancer.
Yeah.
It's like, which cancer have they got?
Yes.
But they used to just be, it's cancer. Oh, there you are. They've all got cancer.
Yeah.
No, there's subgroups and there's sets. Yeah. And it's not just a big blanket phrase. So, yeah, But that's what this film is. I'm sorry, I'm so trying to get us back on topic. But that's what this film's saying. It's like everyone's on here. These 5 sub-character class types all exist within this movie, and they exist within all of the kids who feel like outsiders, because every single person in that room feels like an outsider in their own way.
Yes.
And they're all bringing that. So, yeah, Judd, let's go with him. He is... Yeah. We'll say that he is that, because that was already existing, and we've now got a name for it that we're all willing to use. But at the time, nobody would have used those words to describe him as that. But that's absolutely the character that he was channeling for that performance.
Well, I'm glad that...
So Hannah was right. And I'm sorry that you had to go, oh, what about that? And it was like, oh yeah, penny dropped.
No, it's fine, because I didn't want to say that unless you spotted it as well.
No,
and
but
Hannah,
I was
to
so
know
fixated.
if that was your
No, I can see that totally. I was more fixated on whether the goth had sold out, because I was like, but it's that line in Red Dwarf, where Crichton becomes a human and Cat goes, "Hey mate, you lost your looks." It's like, leave her alone. She was great. Stop making her to somebody else. But she's only doing that because the princess character is being nice to her.
Yes.
And she's going along with it.
Yes.
But it's like the guy who, you won't remember this, Oprah used to have this thing where they do a makeover, like they do on This Morning.
Right.
And they got this guy who literally looked like... those footage of Bigfoot walking through the forest?
Right.
He looked like that, right? And they brought him in for a makeover. It is like the most famous makeover they ever did. And they did him, and he looked like they shaved him, cut his hair, and he looked like Rob Lowe, right? He looked like...
Right, okay.
Oh my God, underneath that, you look like what everyone expects you to be. Right. What everyone expects you to be, and you are a prime example of that. And people were writing into the show, proposing marriage and all sorts. Right? And then years later, on Oprah's retirement, they had him back. And he hadn't gone back to looking like a Sasquatch, but he had grown a beard. He had let his hair grow slightly longer, because that was him.
Mm-hmm.
That was who he was.
Yeah.
It wasn't for the show. He'd come to a more evolved version of the Sasquatch.
Right.
But he was always going to be himself. And for me, that's what that reminded me of.
Yes.
So... Yeah,
yes,
that was my way of justifying it.
Yeah, I guess there's that thing of as well as will they talk to each other on Monday? No, what will she look like on Monday? Will she have gone back to? And I guess it's a bit like there's that scene in About a Boy where
oh God, I love that film so much.
Where Will is trying to get Marcus to not look so terrible, so he buys him some shoes, some nice trainers, and then Marcus turns up on his doorstep, soaking wet, with no shoes on his feet because the bullies have nicked his shoes. It's that kind of thing of, once you've been pigeonholed, the people around you aren't going to let you get out of that pigeonhole.
No.
Or
and you end up putting yourself in there as well.
Yeah. Or because her thing of I'm here because there was nothing better to do. She's clearly got stuff going on in her life that means that she would rather be in detention than anywhere else. And you're like, well, what? And I did read that apparently he did consider a sequel of doing the Monday morning. But couldn't clearly couldn't find a script to kind of make that work. But
that. Just do the school reunion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, where are they in?
And I know he's dead now, right? He died in 2009.
Right, yeah.
Which is a massive loss, because anyone who can write that well and shoot stuff that well, and now I know he'll have had a director of photography, but anyone who can just go, I need this and this and this, and this is what I'm going for, and you can assemble a group of people around him that can provide that.
Yeah.
Just make more films, man. And he didn't get to do that, and apparently had a falling out with I think it was Molly Ringwald, and when he died, because I think she was busy and she said she couldn't make a film with him,
right?
And he kind of took the hump, and she said, in this life, no one can hold a grudge like this guy can,
right? Okay.
And he did his whole life, and that's really quite sad, because he didn't need to,
no,
at all. And Molly should have made more films. I know there's a whole extra story, and people can find out about her career, and she's been treated appallingly by Hollywood. But they're all very good. There isn't a weak performance here.
No.
In fact, the most off-the-wall performance is from the principal. But that's because he has to be unlikable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the janitor's a great character, and he doesn't have a lot to say, but it just works.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the most acceptable of all of the adults in the film.
Yeah.
But there's that whole right.
I mean, it feels like talking about those two. It feels like there's a whole. It feels like they must have shot more stuff, because there's the bit where he goes down to the basement and he's trying to look at the confidential files, and the janitor finds him and it's like, hey, what's going on? And then they end up smoking together, or is it drinking together? It feels like there's a whole extra. There's a whole extra bit to their day. What's going on there. And obviously there's so much, as you said, there's like 8 hours of footage. There's clearly loads more that could have been said about the day for all of the different characters that they filmed. And we, I don't know, does any of it exist? Is this does the longer cut exist? Is this one of these things that's kind of locked in a vault somewhere? Or is it
I've got the Blu-ray,
okay.
and the extras on it are basically stuff lifted from old DVD documentaries that really don't bring anything new. There's a few talking heads. That's about it. I know that there's an audio commentary on it, which I've not heard yet.
Right. Yeah.
I was going to get around to it, but I just didn't. And it's a shame. But the interviews, sort of the Where Are They Now interviews on YouTube, which was filmed at, I think, San Diego Comic-Con or somewhere like that. And it's just brilliant because they've got genuine love for each other, the cast.
Right.
And it's not like they went through something together, but they obviously did something that was important, and it was more important to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, I guess that's the thing. I appreciate that it's a cultural touchstone for people. And I've enjoyed talking. I enjoy talking about it with Hannah, and I've enjoyed talking about it with you. Will I get around to seeing it again? I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll give it another go. But at the end of the day,
eventually,
I mean, well, this is the thing. I still haven't watched this year's Doctor Who because it's not a priority.
Well, you're reading the books first.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but I haven't got any further than Space Babies. But I'm just, like, when I sit down to watch stuff,
I'm looking forward to Wallace and Gromit a hell of a lot more than I'm looking forward to Doctor Who.
Yes, I mean,
I absolutely love the person playing Joy, right? And she is the reason that I'll be going, I'll be watching that.
Oh yeah,
but
there's you know that this year's been particularly tough, for me. And just when I want to watch something, it's got to be something that's comforting.
Yeah.
So more and more, I'm kind of retreating into stuff that I have seen before.
Almost comfort TV, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I said, I have just finished New Captain Scarlet, so,
I'm very impressed you've done that. You've finally got around to it, because New Captain Scarlet, I love New
it's
Captain
so
Scarlet.
much better than my 20-year-old self thought it was going to be.
I'm so pleased you've said that, because I've still got it boxed in a DVD format, and it was great.
I mean, hopefully listeners to all of the episodes on my feed will have heard something before they hear this, because my plan is to do a little extra to the UFO cast as Captain Scarlet. So hopefully people will have heard my thoughts on it. But that aside, I'm revisiting old stuff that is comfortable, because that's what I need at this moment in my life.
Well, yeah. And, if you need it, don't fight it. Don't go, I feel obliged to watch something more worthy.
I feel the odd pull. People talk about Andor being very good, and, there's lots of other TV shows that people go, you should watch that. And I'm just like,
Andor was meant to be
the capacity for it.
Let me see what... originally somebody said Andor was going to last 5 years, then somebody said it was going to last 3, Now it's going to be two seasons in total, but there's a big jump halfway through season 2. So as far as I'm concerned, what you should have done was just do season 2, go up to the jump, and then wait 6 months and then do season 3 and have 2 of them little seasons and things. People are saying Skeleton Crew's great. I'll watch that eventually. I've not seen the end of right, I was going to call it Gay Star Wars. That's really not what it's called.
What?
The Apprentice? No, not Apprentice. What's it called?
The Acolyte.
The Acolyte, yeah. Right, sorry. That's what it became called on Twitter, and you were like, right, I'm going to watch this, and it's not. Not even remotely, but that's a whole different thing I'll be doing. Right, I've not seen the final episode of that. I've not seen the last 40 minutes of Ahsoka. And I've seen all of Ahsoka, and I've really enjoyed Ahsoka. That's great. I was very much into it. And I thought, oh no, I've got to watch something else. So yeah, I've actually started these things and not even finished them.
I just haven't started them.
Yeah, well, real life just gets in the way, and it's really got in the way lately.
It's got very in the way. Anyway, do we have anything else to say about the Breakfast Club before
Let me just consult my magic piece of... Yeah, right. No, apart from my dislike of Ferris Bueller, which I really need to emphasize a lot, that's fine. We'll move on. And Carl was great. Okay, that's it. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I did. And I'm glad we've discussed it.
Yeah, and I think I may have enjoyed it more in retrospect, having talked to my wife and then to you. So yeah. It's not a full-throated recommendation, but you know, it's a. I think I'll finish with this. I recognise that it is a good piece of filmmaking for what it is, you know. And so, if you like a piece of character drama where there is not really any plot driving what's going on, then this is a good film for you to dive into. Just, you know, be warned if you expect there to be a storyline, there isn't really one, but that's okay.
That's fine. Oh, I've just remembered there was something I was going to discuss, which was guns. He had a flare gun in the locker, and there was a whole discussion about Americans and guns. But you know what? Hey, I'm sure everyone's aware of my feelings on that sort of thing, so we could just skip over.
Oh, and actually, no, you've just reminded me of the one other thing that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah,
it's just how different this film would be if you made it today, because they'd all have a phone.
Well, I think you've just said everything you need to say.
You know,
on that one
just, people can just kind of ponder that. But just there's so many films.
No,
there's so many films now that you watch from.
You'd have to have someone say, right, you're in detention, and you'd have a bin at the door, and they'd have to put their phones in them in order to make it actual detention.
Yes.
And the princess character would have a phone that they'd then come off and have to take that off for a spare one, and then she'd have a third spare one just for hilarity. And that's how I would do it if I was making it now, the same, but with the phones.
But you'd then have to deal with their withdrawal from their phones for like.
That could be an entire movie in itself.
So. I don't think there are any Doctor Who actors or any connections to be spotted, but are there any that I've missed, Michael?
I couldn't see any. The only sci-fi connections I could see was the Short Circuit or indeed War Games connection, and that's it. Okay, good. So, is it time for the drum roll, and you're going to tell me what's next?
Yes. Yeah, well, so as I said, I do want to do War Games at some point. I have got it on the slate for this year. But if you love it as much as I do, then maybe we should make it a Christmas special for 2025. But we can discuss that.
It's a hell of a Christmas special. We'll do that eventually.
Yeah, end of the world, almost World War III. Because I'd love to hear how you came to that film. Because obviously, it predates me, but you were a kid when it came out. So you know we've got.
I saw it at the cinema.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we'll have that conversation.
That's how old I am.
No, so we're actually going to do my favourite movie.
Whoa. Okay, no pressure.
No pressure. And the reason I haven't brought it before is because it's not really the kind of thing that we're known for. It is not at all science fiction-y. And also there are lots of really personal reasons which you.
So this is what you would tell people if someone was at a party and said, "So what's
your favourite film?" There's no question. There's lots of personal reasons which you won't share. So I'm slightly reticent to bring it to you because you might not like it. But we're going to do Chariots of Fire.
I've never seen it.
Good. I had hoped that would be the case.
All I know is Vangelis and the 4-minute mile. That's it.
Okay. It's not the 4-minute mile. It's the Paris Olympics.
See, I don't even know that.
You don't even know that.
Right. Roger Bannister?
No. It's earlier than that. It's the 1924 Olympics in Paris.
That. All I know is Vangelis and nothing else.
Everybody knows Vangelis. Everybody knows the music.
And I only know that from Blade Runner.
And you've seen the parodies of people running in slow motion.
I've seen Reeves and Mortimer do the vegetable sketch.
I want to prime you for people to spot. So this is not just spot the Doctor Who actor, because there is only one.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's only one proper Doctor Who actor in it, who is most famous for a vocal performance, though he has appeared as himself. And I suspect you won't spot him, but there is a Doctor Who actor to spot. However, what I want you to look out for, more importantly than that, is an actor from Alien. Okay?
Okay.
So an actor from Alien. And then I want you to look out for 2 Star Trek actors who are from 2 very different pieces of Star Trek. And they were both in Star Trek sometime after Chariots of Fire. So I'd be interested if you can spot them. Also, bonus points if you can spot a very young Stephen Fry and Kenneth Branagh in the background of a couple of scenes. And I've never spotted them. I was reading about this the other week and went, are they? So I know where they're supposed to be, so I'm going to be on the lookout for them. So bonus points if you can spot Stephen Fry and Kenneth Branagh. But mostly what I want you to look out for is an actor from Alien and 2 actors from Star Trek. And I hope you like it, but I'm prepared. I'm getting prepared for the fact that you might not. But I've
only avoided it because it's a sports movie.
Well,
and I'm not. That's it, right? That literally it was it, and also it was what is it? 1983.
It's 1981, and so it's the film that stopped. It's the film that kept Raiders of the Lost Ark from winning the Oscar in 1982. And so a lot of people dislike it for that reason. But although I like Raiders of the Lost Ark, I prefer this. So I will get a copy to you.
They're not really in the same room.
They're not in the same room at all. They're 2 very different.
Right. Okay. Yes. Well, I shall look to see if I already have access to it via some other means, as in, is it on Sky or YouTube?
Do let me know. But
is it on
but otherwise
iPlayer or something?
I can do you a Blu-ray rip of it, and so you can watch it in pristine,
which we will then record
def.
And watch. So we will record that at some point in January, and it will be in our listeners' ears in the beginning of February.
Beginning of February, yeah. Cool. Well,
in the futuristic year of 2025.
Oh gosh, yes. Well, we are. Our voices are in the year 2025, even though we're talking from the year 2024.
Right. Should we finish there?
We should finish there. So it's been great. Thank you, Michael, for bringing this. It's been a really, really good chat. So I will say once again to our listeners, Happy New Year, and I will leave the final word to Michael.
Happy New Year, and be seeing you. That was the Doctor Who Tin Dog Podcast, available on iTunes, YouTube, Twitter, RSS, Vimeo, and across the internet. Doctor Who and its associated properties are all copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Why not become a supporter by visiting patreon.com/tindog. Contact the show on tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.